And you're going to need a nice clean funnel with a long downspout. Okay, then it's just as simple as adding your transmission fluid. Okay, so today we're going to be doing a review on this ATF DW1 transmission fluid, and we're going to be doing a transmission fluid exchange in my 2012 Civic. Okay, first things first, going to need a good pair of safety glasses, and you're going to need some gloves. Okay, so why Honda Genuine Fluid? Well, two reasons. One, Honda cars are very specific to the fluids that they use. The tolerances in the transmissions are very tight compared to yesteryear. And while I do acknowledge that aftermarket fluids and parts can be used in the right application, this is one of those things that you only want OEM fluid for. And the second reason I'm using it is because if there ever was a problem to develop in the transmission, you want to be able to take it in to a service technician to say, hey, I've only used the recommended fluid in this transmission. So that is the two reasons why I'm using genuine DW1 ATF fluid today in my car. And my transmission is going to take almost 3 quarts of this fluid when I do a drain and refill. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is we have to raise the car up. Okay, so safety first, you need to set your emergency brake and chock your rear tires so the vehicle will not move when you jack it up. The last thing that you want to do is have a car come down on you when you're underneath it. Okay, the car is up in the air, and I've got a jack on each side of the car with a block of wood under each front wheel. And here's the driver's side. Same thing. That block of wood under the tires is just in case the jack slips. You never can be too careful when you're working underneath the car. Okay, now before I started this process, I let my engine run for about 10 minutes to make sure that everything was nice and warm and the fluids were flowing very nice. That way any dirt that's floating around in the transmission is circulated and it has a better chance of coming out when you drain the fluid. Okay, now we're underneath the car. First thing we have to do is we have to take this shielding down. This protects the underside of the engine and transmission. So we got to take this down. It's got 4 Phillips head screws, one there, one in the back, and one right there. Sometimes they can be a little stubborn getting down. Just be careful not to strip them as you're taking them out and putting them back in when you're done, because this plate really is crucial to keep the stuff off the bottom of your engine. Okay, once all your screws are out, this comes right off. Next thing to do is to find your drain plug, and there it is right there. You're going to need a 3/8 inch ratchet head to get that out, and that'll do just nicely. Now we just turn it counterclockwise to break it loose. It can be a little tight. There we go. Okay, now that we know that that's broken loose, now what we're going to do is we're going to lower the car back down so it's on a level surface. You don't want it to drain out with the front end up in the air like this, because you're not going to get very much fluid out that way. You might get a couple of quarts, but that last remaining quart would not come out. So let's take the car back down. Okay, car is back on the ground again. Okay, and we still have just enough room under my car to slide the catch pan so we can get all of our fluid. And since I've already broken loose my drain plug when it was up in the air and I had plenty of room, all I got to do is just reach in there with my fingers and take the plug out so the fluid can drain. Alright, and it is a draining. Okay, so now I'm under the hood and I'm locating the transmission dipstick, which is that yellow piece right there. What we're going to do is we're going to grab a hold of it and just pull it out. And all we're going to do is just position it over to the side like that. And that's going to let our transmission breathe so your fluid can flow out a lot easier. Okay, and while we're letting the transmission fluid drain, let's look at the drain plug real quick. Now the tip of this thing is all it is a magnet. So you're going to naturally get some accumulation on the end of it. That's what it's for. Any little fine metal shavings that's floating around the transmission is going to accumulate on this magnet. And nothing excessive I can see, so nothing to worry about. Now if you have more than what you see on my drain plug, on your drain plug, when you take it out, it could be something as simple as you're not changing your fluid often enough. You need to change this fluid about every 30,000 miles. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wipe this off, and it'll be right ready to go back in. Okay, all cleaned up and ready to go back in. Okay, and now that all the fluid looks to be drained, we're going to raise the car back up so we can tighten up our drain plug. Okay, car's back up on blocks, and now we have room to get under there and tighten up that drain plug and do a little bit of cleaning up. Okay, so now we're going to replace our drain plug, and you really need to replace the crush washer on this drain plug. You can get those crush washers at the parts store or at the dealership, but since mine's not leaking, I'm just reusing mine. Okay, now I'm going to take my ratchet and then snug this down pretty good. And now technically you should torque this to 30 foot-pounds. I've been doing this long enough I can kind of get a feel for what 30 foot-pounds is. Bottom line is you definitely do not want to over torque this drain plug, because you're dealing with aluminum threads, and the last thing you want to do is strip out those threads in the bottom of this transmission. So when in doubt, go wrench you a torque wrench. Alright, and that is nice and tight, but not too tight. We're going to call that 30 foot-pounds. Okay, I'm just taking a little bit of parts cleaner and I'm cleaning off under here. You definitely don't want to see any fluid dripping on your driveway later on, and it's just from lack of cleaning up. If something's leaking, you want to know it's not leaking from the mess that you made while changing the transmission fluid. If you see a drip on your driveway, you want to know that it is a legitimate drip and it needs attention. So do your due diligence, take a few minutes and clean off under here. And once you're satisfied, take your rag on top of this plastic cover one more time before you leave, because transmission oil will puddle right there, I can guarantee you, or it comes right out of your drain plug. Okay, so everything looks pretty clean and dry under there. Okay, so now all we got to do is we got to put our pan back up in place and bolt it up. Okay, pan is installed. And don't forget, you don't want to over torque those little screws right there because they'll strip pretty easily. Okay, now all we got to do is let the car down and fill it with fluid. Okay, so the car is on the ground and now it's time to add fluid. Need to pull our dipstick out. Okay, and you're going to need a nice clean funnel with a long downspout. Okay, then it's just as simple as adding your transmission fluid. This is going to take just under 3 quarts. It's about 2.9 quarts. If you add all 3 quarts, it's not going to hurt anything. But if you want to be technical, 2.9 quarts is pretty much where your level is going to be full. Okay, so I'm on my 3rd quart now, and I'm going to stop right about now with just a smidgen left in this last quart. So I'm going to guess that's probably about 2.9 quarts. I've got about 2 or 3 ounces left in this one, so that's going to be about 2.9 quarts. Okay, the only thing to do now is just take it for a little test drive and get the transmission oil nice and hot, and then we're going to check our fluid level. Okay, so I've just come back from my test drive and everything is shifting like a dream. Alright, now the way you check this transmission fluid is the engine has to be hot, which it is, and the engine needs to be off. So you check the fluid when the engine's hot and when the engine's off. So let's see what we got. Okay, I've wiped my stick. I'm going to put it back in. And we're going to pull it back out and let's see what it says. Okay, we are almost to the full mark, so that is where I'm going to leave it. I might could add just a hair more, but you're always in danger of overfilling it if you add any when it's between that add and full mark. And being that it was real close to that full mark, I'm going to leave it just where it is. Alright, I'm really happy with this transmission fluid. This is the 2nd time that I've changed the fluid in my car, and it is shifting just like a dream. I wouldn't use anything else other than ATF DW1 Honda fluid. So I hope you've learned something from this video today. I hope you have the confidence to change your own transmission fluid instead of taking it into a shop and paying outrageous fees to have it done. This is really one of the easier transmission fluid changes there are, because there is no filter to change. It's just a drain and refill. You just have to know what you're doing, clean up your mess, and add the proper amount of transmission fluid when you're done. And that's all it is to it. Thanks so much for watching.